It was a slow start for the Tennessee Titans offense at Wednesday's practice, but Will Levis and company bounced back in a major way. I'll break down everything that happened on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. It was a slow start for the Titans offense, but Will Levis had a bounce back in the middle of practice and finished strong, and that is exactly what you wanted to hear after what took place last week. Also, a big part of that bounce back was Tyler Boyd, who I think may be the straw that stirs the Titans drink. Also, we got a ton of updates on different injuries, and boy, the list is long. Before we get into all of that, though, do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. You're not going to beat that anywhere else. It's why the Locked On Titans podcast has been the #1 Tennessee Titans podcast in the world for 5 seasons running. Throw a thumbs up on the video. Throw a Titan up down below in the chat. With all that being said, let's dive into today's practice. So, again, a slow start for the Tennessee Titans offense in this one. According to Teron Davenport, there were a lot of incompletions early. Also, we heard about a red zone interception. Will Levis was trying to jam one home to Calvin Ridley, and it kind of popped up in the air, and Jack Gibbons was able to pick it off. So a slow start there. Let me just take this moment, though, to say, trying to figure out how small the windows are in red zone is exactly what Will Levis should be doing. Hey, can I hammer this home? Hey, do I have enough room to fit this in? Oh, I don't. That was a little late. Oh, I can't get it in there. That's the type of stuff that you want to see from your quarterback in practice. When we talk about being able to experiment in practice and figure things out, that's exactly what you want right there. Those sorts of things is what you want to hear, not the misses downfield to an open receiver, different things like that. But red zone, you're trying to slam it in. Understandable there. But after the slow start, Levis started to cook. Absolutely cook. I saw a couple of people say this might have been his best day of practice so far this year. I don't know if that's the case. I know there are a couple other good practices in there during training camp, but a really good bounce back from Will Levis. The Titans worked in some 11-on-11 team periods. They did a call-it period, which is basically like a game. It's a simulation of a game, the call-it period. That's where the offense and defense don't know what play calls are going to come in or what situations they're going to be in. So Levis hit 3 straight completions at one point to bounce back and turn things around. Hit Tyler Boyd on an outside pass in 11-on-11. Hit Tyler Boyd over the middle in red zone. Had a nice sideline gain to Tyler Boyd. Also, Calvin Ridley was part of the picture. On the call-it period, Calvin Ridley hit a 20-yard banger to Calvin Ridley to get things going, and then had I saw 25 yards, 30 yards, yardage of these practice plays can be a point of consternation. But I saw 25, I saw 30. Either way, it was a long touchdown pass to Calvin Ridley through traffic. Hit Calvin Ridley over the middle at one point as well. So really started cooking. Again, had a touchdown in 11-on-11, scored in red zone. 2-minute drill at the end of practice as well. The Titans went all the way down the field. Will Levis orchestrating the drive, getting them all the way down the field. And then he throws one to Treylon Burks at the end of practice. Burks jumps up, can't bring it down, almost catches it according to all reports, and then limps off, holding his back, lower back, hurt after practice. That's the Treylon Burks experience in a nutshell. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But overall, again, a good day for the Tennessee Titans offense. And even with a slow start, Will Levis was able to get everything back on track, start hitting all of his playmakers, spreading the ball around, and more importantly than just having a good day of practice. This is the type of bounce back that you wanted from Will Levis after the struggles of last week. I talked about it after Thursday's practice. Some people didn't like hearing it, and I understand it. But the reality is that Will Levis struggled against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, Mike Macdonald should be one of the best defensive coaches in the entire NFL. That's why he got a head coaching job. And Brian Callahan wanted to face them purposefully because he knows that Mike Macdonald is a good defensive coach. That's why he wanted to get Denard Wilson, someone who worked with Mike Macdonald, who Brian Callahan struggled the game plan against last year when he was with Cincinnati going against Mike Macdonald in Baltimore. So you want the Titans to face the most difficult defenses possible in their joint practice so that they're ready for the season as they can be. So with all that being said and all those qualifiers, the reality is still that Will Levis had his struggles in last week's joint practices. There were a couple of missed deep passes to Calvin Ridley. There were a couple of interceptions at times. The Titans offense just did not operate extraordinarily well in those joint practices. So bouncing back from that, imagine having those joint practices and then coming out at the beginning of Wednesday's practice and struggling a little bit. To still have the confidence to flip it on and make plays and turn things around in the periods that are more simulations of what a real game is going to be like. That is exactly what you want to hear from your second-year quarterback. No doubt about it. And Levis talked about the confidence. He said, quote, talking about Brian Callahan, quote, he's instilled a lot of confidence in me as a player. He knew that I could be a great player in this league. To hear that from a dude who's leading the charge was cool. So having that confidence, not looking over your shoulder, not being so worried about a little mistake here, a little mistake there, and being able to get things back on track and still go out and put points up. I saw a report somewhere where Tyke Tolbert was saying you're going to need a calculator for all these points because the offense was doing so well at certain points of practice. Again, things aren't always going to be good. No matter who you are and what NFL season in life, things are not always going to be good. But how do you bounce back from that? How do you get back on track? Do you lead your guys? Do you keep everyone involved? And that is exactly what Will Levis did on Wednesday at practice. And that is exactly, again, what you want to hear. Perfection is the goal, but it's also ultimately unattainable. You're never going to be perfect. But being able to bounce back after you get knocked down, that's what football and that's what life is all about. And the Titans have a good one in Will Levis. So with that being said, I want to zoom in a little bit and talk about the performance of the receivers in this practice and talk about how Tyler Boyd is the straw that stirs this drink. Before I get into that, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, I love going to live events during the summer. Little outdoor concert. There's a few really awesome concert venues by me that have kind of an enclosed but still open space, and getting that breeze and drinking a nice cold one and listening to some good music. There's nothing better. And look, there's nothing better than buying those tickets on Game Time. Game Time actually has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through 1,000 tickets. Look, Game Time still has the best features in the industry. You get all-in prices when you toggle on the feature, you're not going to get any surprise fees at checkout. You get a view from your seat. You get the Game Time guarantee. What else could you need? Make sure that you take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about Will Levis's performance and how he bounced back in practice and why that's exactly what you want to see from your quarterback, especially a young quarterback. But now I want to zoom in to the wide receivers who made that performance possible. The return of Tyler Boyd at the top of that list. Before I get into it, I do want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Tomorrow, I'm going to recap Tennessee Titans practice on Thursday. Then on Friday, I'm going to have a preview of what's going to be taking place against the Saints on Sunday, what to watch for, expectations for the final preseason game. After Sunday's game against the Saints, I will be live here on the Locked On Titans podcast with a full 30-minute recap. And then next week, it's time to start doing some preview episodes, my predictions for the Titans record, certain awards for the team, superlatives, fantasy previews, stuff like that. And we're right around the corner from the NFL season kicking off. Also, over on the Tic Tac Titans film channel, I have my Malik Willis breakdown from Tuesday. My Jaquan Jackson breakdown is up from Wednesday morning, which was a fantastic breakdown in my own opinion. And then my Jalen Harrell breakdown from Saturday's preseason game will be on the Tic Tac Titans film channel on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Football. You're going to get daily insights, the best fantasy draft strategies, so you can win your league this season. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, with all that out of the way, let's talk about these wide receivers. Tyler Boyd was back, all right? And going back to our conversation about Will Levis's struggles in joint practice last week. Couple of different things. Number one, no DeAndre Hopkins. Number two, no Tyler Boyd. So it should be no surprise, I guess, that without the other two top wide receivers on the team, Calvin Ridley had his struggles, getting more attention, having to run more routes, do more work. Will Levis would struggle, not having his safety blanket, his security blanket, his other underneath guy in Tyler Boyd, and then not having the guy he has the best chemistry with in DeAndre Hopkins. So just want to circle back to that and keep that in mind when we talk about Will Levis's struggles. But now that Tyler Boyd is back, he made a huge impact. It was Easton Freeze who said that Tyler Boyd had 3 big, memorable plays on the day. Jim Wyatt said he had 4 catches total on the practice. Tyler Boyd may be the straw that makes, the straw that stirs the drink. That's the phrase that I'm looking for. Tyler Boyd is the straw that stirs the drink. All right. So you're going to have Calvin Ridley, who's going to be able to make big explosive plays from the Z wide receiver position. You're going to have DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to be able to make contested catches and win one-on-one in a physical X role. Those guys, you know what you're going to get. But the down-to-down consistency, hey, it's first down, and instead of taking a loss or taking a zero gain, we're getting 4 yards, we're getting 5 yards. Now we have 2nd and 5. We could take some shots and still have 3rd and 5 if we don't get it. And then when it's 3rd and 5, I can hit a little 6-yard pass underneath, keep the chains moving, and give yourself an opportunity to get to those explosive plays, that down the field back shoulder for DeAndre Hopkins, that deep crossing route to Calvin Ridley where he catches it in stride and uses his speed to get upfield. You have to find a way to get to that. I would say that I would compare it to my eating habits. So what I generally like to do is graze during the day, eat a couple of grapes and a strawberry or 2. Then in a couple hours, eat a couple celery sticks, some carrots with a little deli meat and cheese and crackers. And then maybe have a little afternoon snack of, peanut butter and jelly or, some additional fruit, some peppers, things like that. Maybe a bag of chips on a good day, get myself a little bag of chips in there for the afternoon snack. And then have a bigger meal at dinner time. Now, I will tell you that is probably not the best dietary advice. You want to have your biggest meal earlier to work it off, I'm aware, but everybody loves having a nice, big, hearty dinner at the end of the night after you've worked hard all day. So I would say that the Titans offense needs to work in that way. Like, yeah, eventually you're going to get to the big meal, to the big payoff, the big explosive play. But you have to be able to graze throughout the day. Little 4-yard, little 5-yard, little 6-yard, little dump off underneath on a drag route that Tyler Boyd takes up field for a bigger gain than expected. Like, the Titans need to have the little snacks in their diet to be able to get them to the big meals. I would say, to keep the comparison going, last year in the Titans offense, they fasted. Like, they were just like, hey, we know that we're going to get stuffed on this run and get nothing. We know that if we do a quick drop back pass, there's no way that we're going to have success consistently with how bad the offensive line is and how the wide receivers don't separate quickly. So the Titans were basically just like, screw it. We're going to fast all day like it's Ramadan or something, you know? Like, I'm not eating until very, very late. Like, I'm not eating throughout the day. And I'm sorry if I'm misconstruing Ramadan or anything like that. My understanding is that it's you fast during most of the day. I've heard a lot of athletes go through it. So if I messed that up, sorry, I'm not like some religious educational guy. So I might have, but I think that's the general point. So the Titans were fasting on offense last year. And then they would hope for their big meal at the end and maybe make one big explosive play so they could put up a 20 points and maybe win with a defensive showing. You know, that's what the Titans were trying to do. Now they're healthier. They're like, look, we're still going to have a big meal at the end of the night. We're still going to get our explosive plays, but we need to have some snacks in between to get us there. And that's those little short passes to Tyler Boyd, keeping the chains moving, keeping ahead of the schedule, keeping out of situations where you're 1st and 12, 2nd and 12. That's what Tyler Boyd's going to be for this offense. And that's going to be so critical because they don't have the offensive line. The Titans' offensive line should be improved, but it's still not going to be one of the best offensive lines in the league right away. So having a guy like Tyler Boyd to keep you on schedule, like I've been talking about, so critical. So it makes sense Will Levis would maybe struggle without that in the arsenal and would be better once that's back out on the field. Okay, so Tyler Boyd may be far more important than maybe we're all giving him credit for. I do want to mention Calvin Ridley because the connection is starting to come together. Brian Callahan said it last week that the connection and the improvement between Will Levis and Calvin Ridley would not be linear. That means that it's just not going to start at point A or start at 1, gradually go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and get better. Sometimes it might be good day, bad day, good day, bad day, good day, good day, good day, bad day, good day. You know, it's going to go like that. It's going to look like a mountain peak or a mountain range. Is that, you know, I'm not an outdoor specialist, as you guys probably can tell. Spend a lot of time indoors watching football. Anyways, it's just not going to be like a clean, gradual increase. It's going to be ups and downs. And seeing some of the downs last week, but seeing them get back on the same page today, Wednesday's practice, that's exactly what you want to hear. So the Calvin Ridley connection coming together, they connected with a ton of 20-plus yard plays. But Tyler Boyd is the snack that gets the Titans to the meal that is Calvin Ridley explosive plays. So good to have Tyler Boyd back. And I think the reports that we got out of training camp on Wednesday kind of lend themselves to what we're talking about here, with Tyler Boyd being that guy to get the Titans through some of the times when it wouldn't have been so good in previous situations without him. So with that being said, we got to talk about injuries. There are a couple other defensive updates I want to get into as well, but we'll hit on a major injury update. And I don't mean major injury like an injury is really bad, but we just got a lot of injury updates on Wednesday. So I'll dump those all out to you guys as well. Before I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, you've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, they have something a little different for you. Now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. I have YouTube TV. I have NFL Sunday Ticket. I have FanDuel Sportsbook. And speaking of FanDuel Sportsbook, Titans plus 4.5 week 1 against the Bears. Hey, I'm just saying. So make sure that you visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook and take advantage of this great offer. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast, recapping Wednesday's training camp practice for the Tennessee Titans. I guess it's still technically training camp, but I mean, the Titans are doing a normal practice week like they would get ready for a Sunday game because the game against New Orleans is on Sunday. So it's really kind of like a game week in the way that the Titans are practicing. But with that being said, we got a lot of injury updates on Wednesday, which we'll get our first injury updates of the week every week on Wednesday for the Titans during the regular season. But before I get into the injuries, do want to thank you for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. For your second listen, check out Locked On Fantasy Football, the best fantasy draft strategies, best fantasy insights to set you up to win your league this year. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Couple of defensive notes here. Big day for Jeffrey Simmons. According to Jim Wyatt, he made a bunch of plays. I saw, according to Teron Davenport, Jamal Adams actually got some reps on defense. He rested most of last week, although he was involved in the practices. So it's kind of limited participation there as he deals with soreness. And then Jalen Harrell came in for 2 plays with the first team offense. Got a sack against J.C. Latham, and then immediately got a tackle for loss on one of the running backs. Back-to-back plays. I'm telling you guys, my Jalen Harrell film breakdown is coming out 8 a.m. Thursday morning. He's good. He's a good player. Like, I am allowing you all to get hype. Get hype about Jalen Harrell. The Titans found a gem in the 7th round. But with that being said, one of the reasons that Jalen Harrell got work is because Arden Key got a little banged up. I believe, I want to make sure, it was Terry McCormick who reported that J.C. Latham blocked Arden Key in one-on-ones. Key was wearing a sleeve on his left leg and got up limping and seemed to be favoring his hamstring. He didn't go inside, but he didn't participate in the team drills. So Arden Key back from suspension, not getting suspended, won his appeal, but let's monitor that injury. Jalen Harrell may be a starter before we know it. Outside of that, Treylon Burks, like I said, jumped up to catch a pass at the end of practice, didn't catch it, came down favoring his back. Hope he's all right. Haven't heard anything is serious about it, but just, can Treylon Burks go one day, one practice, one catch without getting hurt? Like, I've mentioned it before, guys. He just has balance issues. He doesn't fall right to protect himself. He loses himself and loses his body control in midair. I don't know what it is. I compare it to a baby deer whose legs are too long for their body to understand, and they're just kind of like, they're fast and they're long and like, but they don't have control of themselves. And that, it just seems like that with Treylon Burks. But again, we don't know that it's serious or anything. He could be back out there tomorrow. Who knows? As for other injuries that are maybe a little more serious than those ones at practice, I saw a report before practice that Caleb Farley was going to practice on Wednesday, but Jim Wyatt from TennesseeTitans.com included him in the people who didn't practice. So not 100% certain with that one. DeAndre Hopkins still didn't practice, although the Titans expect him back for week 1. Cheeto didn't practice, but again, they're hoping to get Cheeto back soon before week 1. L'Jarius Sneed still resting. They're just not playing him in training camp at all. JoJo Domann still out. Cedric Gray with the shoulder still out. Again, we talked about maybe putting him on IR after the 53-man roster is set and then adding someone else. Josh Wiley still out with a concussion. TK McClendon, I had him making the roster just because there aren't a lot of bodies on the interior defensive line right now. But TK McClendon has turf toe, and he may be out a few weeks. Kyle Phillips still out with the hamstring injury. Jabari Small was in concussion protocol after Saturday night's game. He still is. Otis Reese, same thing, concussion protocol. Caleb Murphy cut his hand before practice and wasn't out at practice. Kearis Jackson with a knee injury. And then Treshaun Harrison still not practicing. Don't know what the injury is. May not. He's not going to make the team anyway. So Treshaun Harrison still out. So those are the injury updates. Titans will be back out on the practice field on Thursday. I'll be here with you guys to break that down. Again, check out the Jalen Harrell film breakdown I'm putting out at 8 a.m. on Thursday. Check out the Jet Jackson one I put out on Wednesday, too. They're both really good young rookies from the late rounds who the Titans could use as pretty heavy contributors this year. So check those out. But throw a Titan up in the chat. Throw a thumbs up on the video. That's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.